Hello and welcome to a new video. As you might or might not know, I have been collecting oral history in the last couple of weeks relating to Holywells in County Kilkenny. And in this video, I want to show you how I prepare them for upload to Wikimedia and what happens on Wikimedia. Before I started on this venture, I did a course with Oral History Made Easy, which I would recommend if you want to start collecting oral history yourself, if you want to become an oral historian. I'll put a link in the video description for that. And you can also find information on the website of the Oral History Network Ireland. Of course, there are other oral history networks in other countries, but since I'm covering Ireland, this is what I'm telling you about. So this morning I interviewed a lady and I have the recording here and I will show you what I did with it. I do a little bit of editing in Audacity, like this is a very low volume recording, so I have to fix that a little bit. And I might do a little bit of noise reduction as well, if I can. And on my recorder there's a 2-second lead, so it records 2 seconds before you press the record button. So I usually cut that out. It's 6 here, maybe I just waited a little longer. Today is it's still very quiet. I might use the compressor. Today is October the 3rd. I probably should check the settings on the recorder. And at some point she coughed as well, so I might just cut that out if I can. There was a bit of a peak there, here. Yep. We don't need that, and I will increase the volume eventually, but what's more important is that I'm adding a bit of metadata as well, somewhere here, under Edit, Metadata Editor, and I have a preset or template. So I don't have to type all that again. And the artist name I usually put in the name of the interviewee. And sometimes in the tags I add the Holywells that were talked about, or the pattern or whatever else is in the recording. Place names like that. And then I save it. I won't do it now because I'm not finished editing, but I export the audio as an opus file, because that's what Wikimedia likes, and also as a WAV file, so it should be uncompressed. And that's usually what I do. And then I continue on from there. So I save them on my PC, but you're supposed to always have a backup copy, so I have an SD card where I save all the oral history on. You can see that here on the left hand side, all the names. Usually I put the name of the interviewee and then either the townland name or some sort of place name, the name of the Holywell, something like that. So I'll just copy that here, the whole folder, which contains the WAV file and the opus file. And once I have the subtitle file, I'll also add that to the backup folder. Just to be safe. And I'll show you how I make the subtitle file now, or the transcript, whatever you want to call it. The program I'm using to create the subtitles is called Subtitle Edit. It's all done very manually. It's very tedious. I have dabbled with audio to text apps, which usually use AI, because how else would they do it? I'm just not happy with doing that. The free apps you have to upload your files, your audio files, and I don't know what they're doing with them. I don't know if they're using them for any other AI stuff or for training their AI machine, which I know they have to train them, but the people I've interviewed haven't signed up for that. They haven't signed up to have their voice analyzed and everything. So I've only done that for one, and I've gone back to this manual program that's called Subtitle Edit. There's a couple of presets or preferences that you might want to edit, like the format that it is spitting out in the end is the SubRip SRT file, which is good if you want to upload it into Wikimedia afterwards. So I'm sticking with that. I usually save it as an SRT file and as a text file because I need both formats, but you will see later on why and how. So I can just drag the audio file. I usually use the WAV file if I can find it. This one. You just drag that into the window that the subtitle program has open here, or you can use the open file option. And then you can see in the preview window, because it's not a video, you won't see anything. It's just a black screen. But it today is October, plain like that, and it is a bit louder in this program. But you can see it's 12 minutes 41 seconds. Oh, that's gonna be fun. And then on the left hand side you have the window where you put in the text, and you just insert a new line, and it starts at second 1. If you do this for videos, which I have done sometimes for the few things that I have recorded in connection with this, you don't want to have too much text in it, and that's also one of the preferences that you can set up somewhere. Options, probably settings. You can set how long the lines can be and all stuff like that, which I won't go into now. I'm sure there's tutorials about subtitles somewhere. If I find one, I'll link it in the corner. And for audio, it's not that important, especially not if it goes on Wikimedia. Sometimes if they do talk for a really long time, you might want to split it into 2 sections or more. But with this interview, she didn't really talk that long for any of the questions anyway. So I'll just make a start. Oh yeah, and also usually, like you see when you read like a play, I abbreviate my name with A and the interviewee's first name. It's usually P for some reason, because they're all called Paddy or Patricia, a lot of them. But I abbreviate their first name so you know who is speaking when, in case you can't hear it and you only read it, so you know that's 2 different people speaking, if you get me. So I start with A because I usually start the conversation. Today is October the 30th. (2024). I'm enrolled. I thought I knew what I had said. I didn't. House with Patricia. So you can see here already it says this is too long, you have to split the line, but I will just ignore that. Bergen, thank you, Patricia, for agreeing to meet with me and to be recorded. Actually, I'm making a lot of typing mistakes here because I want it to be perfect, and of course the pressure makes me make mistakes. But you see, I've spelled this wrongly now on purpose because there is a spell checker here, which of course believes you're speaking British English, which most of my interviewees are not, and it doesn't know a lot of the place names, so I have added all these to the user dictionary. So this is the spell check thing here, I think, yes. So for example, it doesn't know the name Bergen, so I add that to the dictionary. It doesn't know the word recorded because that is not a word that exists, but it gives you a couple of suggestions and you can just choose which one you think is correct and click on use and it'll change that. You don't have to do that after every sentence. You can do that at the end of the whole thing, of course. Welcome. So, are agreeing to meet with me and to be recorded. So there my sentence is ended, and then she comes in. So I look at the time here. It's 8 seconds and 567 milliseconds. So I can actually change that to 0. You can put in the end time, as far as I'm aware. So you have to kind of do the math, which is easy for the first bit because it's 8 seconds and 567 milliseconds. And then when you go and add the next line, it'll automatically go in just a little bit after that. If you can see that here, it's very small, sorry. So it goes in after 8 seconds, 591 milliseconds. And then she said, just welcome. I could split the line here, for example. That makes it easier to read later on. So welcome, that's only about a second, probably less.
Welcome.
And then I can go in with the next line and transcribe whatever I've said next. And you won't have to go through this with me all the 12 minutes, 41 seconds. I'll meet you again when I'm done with this. So you can go back a little bit here with these fast backward and fast forward. It'll jump to about, 2 seconds or something back, 3 seconds. And then you can listen back and go back. Unfortunately, because it's a natural conversation, people are going to interrupt, and that makes the transcription difficult. But it can't be helped. You can tell people not to interrupt. Like it's supposed to be a natural conversation, and it just goes the way it goes. And you just have to try and reflect that. If it's only a I won't transcribe that probably because it's just too much work, and it's not really, probably not that important. It always depends on how precise you want to be. Like I've in previous interviewed, every time somebody says I have to transcribe that. Even if I'm doing it, I have to be fair. If they are doing it and I'm transcribing it, I have to do it for myself as well. And that is very tedious. You might not want to do that, but you never know. If you're trying to reflect natural language, is going to be part of natural language. So I'm transcribing as many of those as possible. You're always going to lose out because it's an audio recording. You don't get facial impressions. You don't get when people point and gesture stuff. You could put that in brackets, like you can get, when you're reading a play, like a Shakespeare play, and they have stage directions. If you think it's important, because maybe they're not describing their movement, there is a point later on in this interview when she made movements with her hands and she doesn't really describe and what she was doing there. It might be useful to include that as well, just to make people understand what was happening. You could just record a video, of course, but I think people would be more hesitant to agree to a video recording than an audio, so we're sticking with audio for this. So I'm at a point now here where I said you move to Freshford, and then she says Freshford, or something like that. So I do want to include that, so I have to do the math now. Telling me, and then you move to Freshford. See, so I say Freshford, she says Freshford. That's just gonna happen all the time. So it's around 15 seconds, 520 milliseconds. And so you have to do the math, unfortunately, from 9 seconds, 600. So that's about 6 seconds. It doesn't have to be precise to the millisecond. So you just add the duration between the start time and what is shown here on the right. Add the new line. And usually when it's an interruption, what I do is I use the 3 dots. And again, that was only about a second, probably less, let's say 0.8 seconds. And then I can go back into what I was saying.
Yes.
And luckily I remember what I was saying, because we were both talking at the same time, and it might be difficult for someone else to transcribe that. But since I was there and I remember, and it was only about an hour ago, the memory is still fresh and I remember what I was saying. So these are all little things that you have to consider and make up your own mind about your strategy and your standard of quality, if you want to call it that. Of course, it is sometimes useful to save your work before you're finished, in case your computer crashes or something. So you click on save, and I think it automatically goes to the folder that you had pulled the recording from. So you can just leave it there, and you can see here save as type SubRip, that's the one I want, but you have lots and lots and lots of different file endings. I haven't a clue what most of them are. But SubRip is, I think, a standard for subtitle files, which you also get on YouTube when you have your subtitles generated on YouTube after uploading a video and you want to download them for some reason. Like I usually do that. It's just a side note. I usually do generate subtitles on my YouTube videos, and you can turn them on now. Click on the CC in the corner or at the bottom. I'm not quite sure where it is. And I transcribe it as regular English first. But since I usually often say Slangoful at the end or something like that, it doesn't recognize that. So I translate that in the transcript as bye for now or something like that. And then I download the subtitle file, and then I add a new language for Hiberno English, and I upload it in that, and I changed a few Irish words, and I actually transcribed in Asquelga, if you get me. So that's the SRT format that comes with timestamps and all that. You get 3 options on YouTube. I can't remember what the other 2 are, but one of them is definitely the SRT, which is this SubRip. And you just save that, and then you continue on with your transcription. You see I have managed to get to 46 seconds, so it'll be quite a while until I'm finished. So I'm finished. It's about 2 hours later. I'll save it. I've already saved it just with pressing Ctrl and S. I'm just gonna show you again. Save as SubRip and the name. Save. Want to replace it? Yes. And then we can go to Wikimedia and upload it. So the website is commons.wikimedia.org. This is where I upload all my oral history files. I also upload photographs, of course. But since we're talking about that, I'll show you that. So I have to log in with my username and password. That's a username that you have to create for Wikimedia Commons, but it also applies to Wikipedia and Wikidata if you're planning to use that and to upload and contribute. So on the left hand side you see upload file, which you can click, and then that should open the upload wizard, and you can either select the files here, you know, like any other upload you do, or drag it into that field, which I will do. And so I want the opus file, not the WAV file. If you don't have this showing which types you have, like up here, the tab, you can always go right click, and somewhere there should be properties, and that should show you what kind of a file it is. Type of file, opus file, and for WAV it will say WAV file. But I want the opus file because of reasons. So I just drag that in here, and it'll take a while depending on how fast your internet is and how big the file is, of course, but it shows you the progress here. Sorry if there's any background noise from my housemates, but it's midterm break, so there are people at home. And once that's done, it says the name there, the file name, and then you can press continue. And there's no issue about GDPR or anything. All the people that I interview have to sign a participation form and a recording agreement, or a participation agreement and a recording agreement, and it says that their recording will be associated with their name. So I have to have their name there in any case. And then you click on continue, and then it asks you, is this your own work and anyone is free to use it, or is this someone else's work and is free to share? They sign over, with the recording agreement, they sign over their copyright to me. So this is my own work and anyone is free to use it. And then you have to tick more boxes. This is entirely my own work. This work contains the work of others. There's more explanation. Or I generated these works using an artificial intelligence tool, which I obviously haven't done. And then you have to say which copyright license you want to share it under. I share these under the Creative Commons waiver, so anyone can work with it. And then down here is you have to tick a box. This work provides knowledge, instructions, or information to others. Or this work is for my personal use, for example, photos of myself, my family, friends, or self-promoting content. If you tick that, I'm pretty sure they won't let you upload, because this is not like Flickr or something like that, or a drive that you can just use to store your own photographs. The photographs have to, or media, has to be of use to others. It has to provide knowledge or information to others, which a selfie of yourself probably won't. So you take the first one and click on next. Then you can give it a title. For example, I put in, okay, I can't use a colon, I can use the hyphen though. And then for the caption I use the same. If you want to add a caption in a different language, Irish for example, you can do that. I usually don't do that. And then you can give it a description, which you can, if you're lazy or you don't have the time at the moment and you want to come back later, you can just have this box ticked same as caption, so it'll be the same as above here. But it's always better to provide more of a description because it makes the data fairer. I meant to mention that earlier. Fair data is findable, accessible, somethingable, and reusable. It is a lot more findable if you have more keywords in your description. So that's why you put more in the description. So Patricia Bergen, native of Tullaroan in County Kilkenny. And you don't have to formulate sentences, but it makes it easier for people to read later on, because you're not just providing this for the machine, the computer to find, but also for people who might be looking for this later on. And they might like to read proper sentences. I haven't thought this through first though. And then again, you can add a description in another language if you want to. And select the date, and that's the date of the recording. Which should really be in the metadata. And then you can add main subjects visible in this work. This is all formulated for photographs and pictures. So obviously there's nothing visible in this because it's an audio file. But what they mean is depicted in a way, which is still very visual. So for example, she talks about the pattern of the dining. Well, she mentions it briefly, so I can put that in because whatever you type in here has to have a Wikidata entry. And because I have created Wikidata entries for most of the patterns in County Kilkenny, it should come up. There it is. I don't know if it's Tullaroan pattern. It is, yeah. Sometimes I have added alternative names to pattern of Tullaroan, so that might work as well, I'm not sure. Whichever, just work. Yeah, it does work. What else? Ladywell. So try to find the right one. This one down here. Is it Holywell and the townland of Castlemarket? She did mention the pattern of Magdalen. I don't think I have that created yet. No. You can always go and create them afterwards. What else did she talk about? Halloween. Apple. I don't know if apple bobbing is already. Where's it gone? Apple bobbing. Yep. So that already has a Wikidata entry. She did talk about this school in Freshford. I don't know now if I have created a Wikidata entry for that building yet. I presume I haven't. But again, I could go back and do that later on. You can always, because it's accessible and open and all that, you can always go back and add information. It's very different to writing a book. Well, once it's printed and you can't add anything. But with the Wikiverse, you can always go back and add stuff or correct stuff. So that's one of the really good things about this. Category, I put this in the oral history about Holy Wells in County Kilkenny. I could also add it to Lady Well, I suppose, but she didn't really say that much about it. It's really only the information that someone from Freshford went to the Holy Well that might be important. I won't do it now. I might change my mind later on. I wouldn't add a location because I don't know which one to add. Any of the Holy Wells she talked about, because you can only add one location. The location where it was recorded, I suppose I could do that. But this is all metadata, additional data that you could add later on in the metadata, which I probably won't do. I should, maybe, but I'm already doing quite a lot. And then you can publish the files. This will properly upload it and create an entry on Wikimedia. And then it looks like that, and you can use the file already on another website or somewhere, or send someone the link, which I will send to Patricia eventually. But if you just click on this link here, it'll open the page for that file. And this looks like any other media page on Wikimedia. You have the file name up here. You have the download options, the use this file on the internet, use this file on Wikimedia, email link, information. Then you have the actual file. If it was a photograph, you would see the photograph here, or a scan. Because it's only in inverted commas, an audio file, all you see is this player, which you can press and then it starts playing. I won't do that now. It gives you the type of file, the length, it's 12 minutes, 42 seconds. The frame rate or something? And the file size, so it's a little bit above 11 megabytes. Then you have the file information, which has the caption that we just filled in, and the summary, the description that I also just filled in, the date that we filled in, source's own work. Remember, that's one of the boxes we ticked early on. And then the author is my username. And then we have the licensing, the Creative Commons license, and you can click on that and it'll explain to you what that means. A file history, for example, if I decide there was a point where either I cleared my throat or she cleared her throat and I thought maybe I should have cut that out. If I wanted to decide to cut that out, I could do that and re-upload the file. I should do that before I upload the subtitles or the transcript because it'll influence the timestamp slightly. And then down here we have the metadata. Remember, I did that in Audacity. I added some of the metadata. It really only took the date and the author, which is grand. Up here then we have also, which I skipped, the structured data. This is where we have all the items portrayed in this file or depict. So these are all the Wikidata entries, and you could click on that. Do that for, let's say, our Ladies Well. I'll open that in a new tab on Wikidata, and that'll give you all the information about that Holy Well that is added to Wikidata, which is obviously stuff that I've added to Wikidata, so it's quite a lot. You can do that in your own time. But that's the beauty of linked open data, which I talked about in a previous video, that you can link all these. You don't have to put all the information in this file, but you can link it to other files on Wikidata, which also other people could contribute to. They haven't, but they could. And then up here we have the three tabs: the file tab, the discussion tab, and the TimedText tab. And discussion is if someone has any comments about whatever they want to comment about this file, they could start a discussion, which usually doesn't happen. And if there was a copyright issue, for example, somebody might cop that and might comment and say, do you even have copyright for that? Stuff like that. But what's more important is the timed text one up here. Before I click on that, I will open the subtitle file, which I have here, of course. It's this SubRip subtitle file, and I'll open it in Notepad to show you what it looks like there. So we have all the timestamps. They're all numbered for some reason. So timestamp 1 is from timestamp 0 to 8 seconds 567, if you remember that. And I just copy all of that highlight and copy that because we will go into the timed text now. I click on that. So because it's this reddish brown, brownish red, whatever, it means that doesn't exist yet. So if you've ever seen that on Wikipedia, it means there's no article behind that link. But I can create content behind that link by clicking on it. And it says create new translation or edit existing. It's not translation, it's just a transcript, but we just work with what's there. And the language is English, so I don't have to change that. And I can press on the go button. And you see it gives an example what that looks like, and that looks terribly similar to what we have here. So we can just, and it does say formatting template for the SubRip format. So that's what we did. That's why we did that. And I can just, if I hadn't copied that yet, copy that I had already and paste that here and maybe delete the last 2 lines which are empty. And then we can have added transcript, and we can click on show preview. And that's what that looks like. It's not the easiest to read now, but you know, if you just skip over the timestamps, which you as a person you don't really need, but that looks okay. I did run the spell check in the end several times, so it should all be there, hopefully. And then I can save that by clicking on publish page. So that's what that looks like. It's still not pretty or anything, but this is not actually for people primarily. But if I go back to file now, you can see that the timed text link is blue now, which means there is content behind it. And if I clicked on the player now, I might turn the volume down a little bit, it should open the player and the subtitles should come up automatically. Fingers crossed. Today is October the 30th, 2024. I'm in Roth House with Patricia Bergen. Thank you, Patricia, for agreeing to meet with me and to be recorded.
Welcome.
So you see that
Patricia, you're
originally
from Tullaroan,
and if there is text that is quite long, it will fill the page of window, which is fine because there's no video behind it, it's only audio.
We had a little chat beforehand, twice actually.
So if I want to
do you know the name of the Holy
there.
in the band?
What I then usually also do is I add the transcript here on the file page because I can add footnotes and links to other things. As I said earlier, it's all about linked open data. So I could link when she mentions Tullaroan in case there's more than one Tullaroan in Ireland. I don't think there is, one of the few names that might not have a duplicate name. I could link to the Wikidata entry for Tullaroan, which I have done with previous files. I'm just going to show you what that looks like in one that I've already done. And I'm also choosing another interview that I conducted with a woman because there's only 2 so far. So in the transcript, I delete the second timestamp. So I just go back up here and I just delete this part here for each and every one, which again is a lot of work, but that's what makes it look a bit easier to read. And you could of course just leave them out as well, but if someone wants to jump to, I don't know, second 1:23 and hear a certain pronunciation, for example, but there's not really any very Irish names in this one, but if there was and you wanted to see how that sounds, like for example Shangani here, you could go to that timestamp and listen to how that was pronounced. Don't do that because she actually struggled at that point with the pronunciation. And then you can see that in square brackets I added a link, and that will lead you to the townland of Shangani in Coolcraheen. Same with Ballyraft in here, and then I have footnotes. For example, she mentions an Aunt Kit, and I looked her up in the census, and there's the link to Auntie Kit in the census in 1911. And stuff like that, which makes it easier to identify place names or people, or, you know, link to other interesting things. So sometimes when there's buildings mentioned, I will probably do that for the school building that she mentioned there in the interview, the old school building, because I think it's on the National Index of Architectural Heritage. I will probably link to that entry on the National Index of Architectural Heritage, Buildings of Ireland. And, it gives you more information. I like to have that, like, when I'm reading something, when you're watching a movie or whatever, a documentary, and you might just watch it and be happy with that. But these days you can pause, if it's on YouTube or even on the telly, you can pause if it's recorded, and you can look it up on a map if you want to know where this actually is. If they don't provide a map in the documentary, which they of course should, but if you want to look up something, you could do that. And on this platform, you can link straight away, so it takes a lot of the work out for other people. You don't have to do it. I just like to do it to make it easier for other people. And I think it makes the presentation of the file pretty good and usable, I hope. You can let me know in the comments what you think, if it's a bit of overkill there, or if you think it's a good idea to do it that way. I basically came up with this myself. It wasn't part of the course I did, but I thought this is a good way of presenting this oral history in an accessible, reusable, and so on fair way. So that's that. I don't think I have to show you how to take all this out. You just highlight it and delete it, and then you might want to, I don't think I did it here, because if you copy and paste, I also can delete the numbers. If you just copy and paste this, it'll be in one line, even though there's a line break here. You either have to add a second line to have a line break in this presentation, or you have to add a bit of HTML, if you know how. So this is the HTML for a line break, and you can just add that everywhere. Just copy and paste, copy and paste. The template, I do have that template somewhere, I think. Yeah, so the template I'm using for the square brackets is this. You have this label, wavy, 2 wavy brackets, label, vertical line 1 equals, and then you add in the Wikidata identifier. Another vertical line, show _ID equals no, which means it won't show the number. It will just show the label, and when I say the label, we go to Ballyrafton, which is not a good example. Maybe soda bread. Because, oh, that's a Wikipedia link. That's not what I wanted. Trying to find one that might have different names. Kennyswell, please. Okay, so Kennyswell is a holy well in County Kilkenny, and the locals call it Kennyswell, but it's named after St. Canis, so some people might refer to it as St. Canis as well. So on Wikidata, we have the main name, which is what the locals use, which is, if you're asking for the way, that's the one you want to use, so people know what you're looking for, hopefully. And then you have all the alternative spellings. So in older literature, you might find it in one word, Kennyswell, and then you have Canis as well, where people leave out the saint, which they tend to do because life's too short. And then you have saint spelled out, saint abbreviated with the dot and without a dot. And the label that is shown in the text in the brackets automatically is always this one, the main one. So you just have to bear that in mind. Sometimes I've just linked, let's say, if it was the exact same word, like for Trinitywell probably, it will only be called Trinitywell. Well, sometimes it might be called Holy Trinitywell. I've linked directly the word, I didn't put it in brackets, but you have to be aware that anyone might change this on Wikidata. That someone might come along and be super precise and might change, put Kennyswell under also known as, and move St. Canis as well here, and then the label displayed will change here automatically. So you just have to be aware of that. That's why I tend to use the brackets and not replace the name here with the label, because it might change as soon as someone changes it here, and then it doesn't reflect the actual words used in the interview. I'm probably overthinking this, maybe. Let me know. So this is what I'm doing. Some of the really obvious ones I didn't link, like Knock or Lourdes. I hope that people will be able to find that themselves. But you can always, because again, this is all Wikimedia, you could always go in and add a label for Lord or Knock if you wanted to. I think it's called the Shrine of Knock or something. Not sure. Or like Sheestown has 2 different spellings. It could be double E, it could be EA, so that might have an influence on whatever is on Wikidata, sorry. So I hope that was enlightening and inspiring and or just interesting. Thanks very much for watching. And maybe I have inspired you to also conduct interviews. Just make sure you take a course first, because there's ethical things to consider and technical issues, as you've just learned, that you might not have thought about first. And it might be good to get a course. They're not super expensive. And the Oral History Network in Ireland is super helpful. And thank you very much for watching. And see you again soon. Slán go fóill.